Good morning. I want to share with you a little story that I just read that I thought was worth trying to remember. So I thought, what better way to try to remember something than to share it? So I'm reading from Seneca's epistles, his letters. Epistle, I think, is just a fancy word for letters. And this is epistle number 9, titled, that's 8. Oh, what was it? Was it indeed? Yeah, it is 9. And the title of this, each of these letters was something that Seneca wrote to a kind of a student, a protege called Lucilius. And so each of these letters that he wrote had a title, and then it would include a little snippet of wisdom that he would share along the way. Now, of course, Seneca, a Roman Stoic philosopher, had lots to say on his own, but he would share often from Epictetus, and he would also share lots of interesting stories. So really good stuff. Boy, I wish I'd found this book when I was 16. What a difference that would have made. Anyway, the story I want to share now is in epistle number 9, which is on friendship. Is that right? I just looked it up. It's on friendship, on philosophy and friendship. And he's telling the story of two men. One is a man named Stilbo, and the other is a man named Demetrius. Now let's see if I can put that down and remember that. Stilbo and Demetrius. Stilbo was a Stoic philosopher living in an unnamed city somewhere in the Roman Empire. Demetrius was a conqueror, and he was known as the sacker of cities. And apparently when he conquered a city, he just wasn't enough to conquer it. He had to raise it and ruin it. Now, this is the second time I've encountered this story. I encountered this story earlier this year while reading another Stoic text. I think it was a Stoic text that related the same story in a slightly different way. It had the sound of a fable in a way. This one has more details. Although I tried to look it up to see if Stilbo was a real person in history, and I couldn't. So it could be a fable. Anyway, here's the story. Stilbo, Stoic individual. Now remember, back then, Stoicism, although not a religion, it's more of a school. Stoicism, this was probably right around the late, somewhere like 200 BC to the start of the AD period, and then it snuck in for another couple hundred years after that. But really, at its height in the pre-Christ period, it was in a dominant philosophy, school of thinking that, along with Epicureanism, cynicism, and other isms, were schools of the Roman thought. And of course, the Romans had their pantheon as well, and their religion. With Constantine adopting Christianity as the official state religion, really, put a change to all of that and caused a lot of these to kind of fade away into history, including Stoicism. Imagine the world we lived in now if Stoicism had won out, if Constantine had instead chosen the Stoic way. But I guess that didn't get him very far, because Marcus Aurelius, another Roman emperor, did choose the Stoic way, but I guess that didn't get him so far. Although he was known, history remembers him as the last of the great emperors, the great philosopher kings. Anyway, so Stilbo and Demetrius. Hey, good, I'm remembering the names. So Stilbo was these so if Stoicism was this school of thought throughout the Roman Empire, which was the known world at that time from that perspective, if Stoicism was that, there had its adherents all over the place, right? There were people who would abide the Stoic way of life. Now, Stoicism, of course, embodies the traits, the principles, the qualities of wisdom and reason being logic and discernment, what is the word I'm looking for here is wisdom. Okay, reason uses logic, of course, and skepticism. That's the word I'm looking for. To have a skeptical frame of mind, and then to use reason, to use logic to discern what is true. So if you think of Stoicism as being both logical or reasonable, based on wisdom being accumulated through time, through logical application of reason to the world, and then the fortitude, or no, not fortitude yet, the apathy, the apathy to recognize what is and what is not within our control, and to not fret about the stuff that's not within our control. And really the only thing that's within our control is how we choose to react to the world around us. There's this whole idea in Stoicism of fortune. Fortune is all the machinations of the universe that are happening, that conspire here and there to have the different ends of life, and that we have a little bit of a say in that, but for the most part we are pawns in that we're like corks bobbing around on the sea, and that we kind of resign ourselves to what fortune leads to. And that is relevant to the story of still, I have to remember his name, Stilbo and Demetrius. Stilbo and Demetrius, yes, Stilbo. That's relevant. So that whole idea of the cork upon the sea is relevant to what Stilbo is going to say in this story. Another one is, I said, apathy. So wisdom, reason, apathy, fortitude, the ability to withstand what the world throws at us, to have the strength to carry on. So armed with those traits, there are people all over Rome, men mostly it seems, who pick up on these and become Stoic adherents. Students of the school of Stoicism, readers of the works or of the philosophers who did that: Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, Epictetus, was Lucretius? I don't know. Who's the guy that lived? Demetrius. Was that the guy who lived in the barrel? Or was he Stoic? I don't know. I get my schools mixed up. Anyway, back to the story. So Stilbo, living in this city where Demetrius with his army is coming to sack. And he comes in and he indeed sacks the city. And like I said, he doesn't just take it, he ruins it. He levels it, razes it to the ground, burns it out. And so picture this scene where the city is just in flames, just like imagine Dresden, after the firebombing, or Tokyo after the firebombing, just burning city. And out of the burning, smoking city comes this one man in his toga, stumbling, limping out of the ruins, and that is Stilbo. And Stilbo comes out, and the soldiers, Demetrius's soldiers, are out there, and they see this man's coming, stumbling at him, and he seems to be, sound body. He's still alive and walking, and they grab him, and they take him right away to Demetrius, the emperor, and not the emperor, but the leader. And Demetrius interviews him and says, "Tell me, what you don't know yet is that Stilbo has lost everything. In the sacking and the ruin of the city, he lost his home, he lost his business, his livelihood, he lost his wife, who was killed, he lost all of his children, all of his family, everything gone. Literally walked out of the fire with the toga on his back." So Demetrius, he's pulled before Demetrius, the conqueror, the sacker of cities, who asks him, what have you lost? Let's see if I'll just read it. He says, "For Stilbo, after his country was captured and his children and his wife lost, as he emerged from the general desolation, alone and yet happy, spoke as follows to Demetrius, called sacker of cities, because of the destruction he brought upon them, in answer to the question whether he had lost anything." Demetrius, here's Stilbo responding, "I have all my goods with me." "There is a brave and stout-hearted man for you, the enemy." That's how Demetrius responds. "There is a brave and stout-hearted man for you. The enemy conquered, but Stilbo conquered his conqueror. I have lost nothing. He forced Demetrius to wonder whether he himself had conquered after all. So it would sound that from that, so he stumbles forth, and Demetrius asks him, "What have you lost?" And he says, "I have lost nothing. I have all my goods with me." An interesting way of saying it. That's not quite what he said in the other story that I read, and I can't quite remember what he said, but I have all my goods with me. By goods, I believe he means those Stoic virtues, that the pursuit of wisdom, the containment, the holding of wisdom, the application of reason, the application of apathy, temperance, all of these things were still sound, because those are things that are contained within us. They're not related in any way to the external world. So despite the fact that he had lost everything, fate had swept through and brought ruin to his material world and his familial relations and his everything, he still had those Stoic virtues intact within him. And Demetrius realized that those were things that could not be taken, and that he was indeed dealing with a man who had, though wrought to ruin, had in fact conquered the conqueror, the sacker of cities. For how can you sack a man or a woman who is in possession of and intact with the values that make life worthwhile, or at least that make life sufferable and manageable, as as well exemplified by the story of Stilbo and Demetrius. There, I got the names down. I think I can remember the story. So I hope you've enjoyed hearing that little story. And again, Seneca's epistles. If this is a book, if I had stumbled upon this book at the age of 16, what a world of difference that would have made. Highly recommended. This is the Harvard edition. I think it was dates from 1917. It's from the Harvard Library, Harvard University Press, Cambridge, Massachusetts, London, England. I guess, where's that? Oh, no, where did London come from? You would think that would be Oxford. Anyway, I'll leave it at that. Anyway, my student stood me up this morning, so my first student, so that's why I can do this. But I'm going to sign off here, and then I'll call up my second student and see if she's ready. She can meet me a little earlier. I wish you all the best. Remember, the path of wildness, it's easy to find. The course of a stream, leaves blown in the wind, and a beast's track through the brush. And if you can get your Stoic virtues of wisdom, reason, temperance, and fortitude under wraps, then you too can tolerate the vicissitudes of fortune. Fortune be damned. Take care, everybody. Be safe, but not too safe. Bye-bye.